Welcome to episode 506 of the Man That Can Project podcast, your ultimate guide to unlocking your full potential of the mind and body. I'm your host, Lockie Stewart, and today I'm going to be reading from the script because we've got a lot to cover here. We have a very special guest, Sean Burley. Mate, you are dressed to impress, and we're going to dive into that in a moment, but thank you so much for joining me.
It's awesome to be here.
So Sean's an entrepreneur, a fashion enthusiast, a lifestyle influencer who has made a significant impact in the digital world. He is known for his impeccable style, as for those who are watching along on YouTube, you can see his adventurous spirit and his authentic approach to sharing his life's experiences. And for those who are following along on TikTok, he's doing a great job of that, and Instagram and every other platform. In today's episode, we're going to delve deep into a topic that many men grapple with, but few openly discuss. You're literally the first person I've seen talk about this topic, and when we were having a coffee the other day, as I mentioned, it got me so inspired, which is wild. And everyone's probably, what's the topic? It's hair loss and hair transplant. So Sean, you recently underwent a hair transplant and have been incredibly open about the journey. We'll discuss societal pressures, stigma around balding, the decision-making process for getting a hair transplant, and the impact it has had on self-esteem and confidence. So our goal today is obviously to not only to inform people, but to foster a conversation that can help men have more comfortable experiencing discussing these topics and making decisions that are right for them. So without further ado, let's dive into the conversation. I was going to say competition. Conversation with Sean Burley. Mate, thank you so much for giving up your time. You're a busy man. You got a lot on. You were supposed to be in Europe at the moment.
Yeah, that all got cancelled, which I'm not angry about. I'm happy to sit down here and just sort of not travel now and get into a good routine. See you at the gym most mornings now, which is awesome.
Crushing it.
So, the whole travel routine does throw the routine when it comes to health and fitness out the window, but that's something I'm just trying to focus on whilst I've got some downtime at home now.
Yep. Well, let's go back to the beginning, mate. You have a big online presence, and you're a man who has a lot of self-respect in the way that you dress, and I see you in the gym, as you mentioned, a lot, and for me, those are big signs of individuals who give a crap about themselves, and they're people that I want to surround myself with. What was life like for you before social media? How did you get into the social media role? What influenced your, interest in fashion? And we'll go from there.
Yeah, it was probably right after university. Me and my business partner decided to start a courier company, a digital courier company, and the idea of it is pretty simple. It's very similar to like Skyscanner or Webjet. And what we do is, if any companies want to jump online and send a parcel from here to Europe or Europe to Australia or domestically, essentially what it does is just compares, FedEx, DHL, UPS, TNT on a comparison website, depending on weight, size, urgency, and where it's going. We pretty much compare the market of courier companies. That's what we do, right? And then, so once we sort of got that up and running, we were pretty young. We were like 24, 25, and we were starting to get sort of meetings with like Uber and big fashion labels and all this kind of stuff. And we were sitting down in warehouses with logistics and procurement managers who have been in the business for like 25, 30 years, right? So we're like, who the hell are these guys who are 24, 25 telling me how to do my logistics job? Well, it's a pretty archaic industry as it is, right? So, me and my buddy were like, well, we need to really start to like give off a really good first impression, a professional first impression if we're going to start sitting down with some of these bigger companies. So we just started investing in our clothing a little bit more, and that's kind of when I got hooked on tailoring and suits, and got delved into the world of like sartorialism, which is like Italian tailoring, right? So that's where the addiction started, and then obviously the suit collection grew. It's a full blown addiction, man. You have a look at my wardrobe. There's like 50 suits, and they're color coded like a rainbow. Yeah, they slowly go from greys to light blues to dark blues to blacks to some pretty random suits. Like,
I've got a question for you then. How do you choose the perfect suit for the occasion that you've got on? How does that go?
Oh, you can't ask me that because like when it comes to fashion, I'm an absolute peacock. So I'll just be like, I'm going to grab that red suede Hugh Hefner looking one today. I'm going to wear that because I've realized I can get away with some pretty loud, audacious suits. So, yeah,
I'm an absolute peacock.
Yeah, it's true. That's how that addiction started. And then started uploading sort of social media posts of where I was having coffee and what suit I was wearing with work. And we were traveling between like Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane at the time. And then, I just started uploading photos of at a different cafe with a different suit combination. And it was usually just a top-down photo of like my face down. So no one actually really saw my face in social media for quite some time. It was a little bit mysterious, I guess.
Yeah, I like that.
And then, the following kind of just went up from there. I wasn't really trying. And then one of my mates who was an amateur photographer was like, why don't we just take a couple of photos with your face in it and some walking shots in the suits? And then I posted a photo of my face in there. And then people just was like, bro, is that Deadpool? Ryan Reynolds, is that you?
Mate, I was literally going to say on the photo you showed me before, I was like, man, you look like you just owned Wrexham.
Yeah, I know. I far out. They get a lot of that. And then, that just went up. And then, suit brands and stuff started hitting me up. And I was like, far out, man. If I can get a free suit, I've made it. And, got my first suit with Rod and Gun. They sent me
I love Rod and Gun.
I love them too, dude. I've got a great relationship for the last 5 years with them now. But they were the first guys to hit me up and be like, hey, Sean, you want to do like a free suit for content stuff? I was like, boom. Made it. Yeah. So
tick that off the vision board.
So that was like the first gig. And then, just kind of just went up from there. It was just putting up daily photos of suits combinations. And people were hitting me up saying, I'm wearing this today. I've got this coming up. Or, hey, I'm looking to buy a suit for a wedding. Or girls being like, I'm looking to buy something for my boyfriend or husband. Can you suggest something? So that's how that element just kind of went nuts. And then it developed into travel content. And then the travel content turned into like then being hit up by hotels and airlines. I'm like, right, this is starting to get some traction now. So I better put some energy into this. And
so coming from initially it all just rolled off of your entrepreneurial endeavors and you just started pretty much, I'd say, vlogging or bringing people along on the journey. And
it was back in the old school days where Instagram was just a photo. There wasn't stories involved. There was nothing. You never really got to get an idea of the person's personality. So I think like social media back then, you were following everybody because you really didn't understand what the person was like. And I think when stories came out, for me personally, it went one or two ways. Like people were now putting up stories and I was like, man, I'm really disengaged with their content now as like a speaker and personality. I'm like, they're really great photos, but unfollow. Or the other way, there'd be people that I've seen that had, okay content, but they had really contagious personalities and spoke really well and they're really engaging and told really good stories. Those people did really well as well. So I think, most of my growth was in that period where, stories went around. So it was just a nice photo with a nice suit at a really nice cafe.
But it's still brilliant that you've now built this whole brand off the back of that and you still have your business now. How did that idea come about first? I know we'll bounce around here, but just for that business, when you were talking through, I was like, that is so unique and random.
It is random. It's so it was essentially a family business at the beginning. The idea originated in the US. And my dad and I both used to work for DHL, the courier company. I was unloading cargo freight planes at nighttime, graveyard shift, just plane after plane after plane. My dad was working with DHL in Singapore, Philippines. I spent most of my life growing up in Asia.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was born in Johannesburg, raised in the Philippines, lived in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, Thailand, and then decided to call Australia home in like full time in like 2007. And then my dad left DHL. I was just finishing university and I'd already worked at DHL with my best mate that I went to boarding school with when I was like 12. And then Dad was like, I've got this idea. He's like, freight, you know how to sell freight. He's like, let's get this thing off the ground. We're going to franchise it. You're going to be the first franchise I sell. You're going to be the proof of concept as well. So then once we got that up and running, we integrated with a couple of carriers. Then we moved from our franchise into the head office with my dad. Then I started selling franchises. Then I turned from the franchise sales into the franchise business coach and started coaching the franchisees that we sold to. And then eventually I think we're probably at 250 franchises across Asia Pacific now.
Wow.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. And then I decided, that's when Instagram started going crazy. I started taking photos in like Asia. We were setting up in setting up in Mumbai and Singapore, South Korea, Vietnam, and we were traveling around, setting up the offices. And then, of course, I took my camera with me.
Yep.
Started shooting the coffee shots in like cafes in Saigon, and then some places in Mumbai and Delhi, and then so the content got a little bit more travel orientated.
Yep.
And then there was a couple of big jobs that came my way, and I realized, far out, this is I'm gonna take a walk from the business and just focus on being creative, and decided to go to the Instagram route full time.
Did you feel that was a bit of a risk? Like,
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the security of owning your franchise and a salary. And then there was this Instagram world, which is so hot and cold.
Yep.
1 month you'd be sailing around the world, getting these awesome jobs, these once-in-a-lifetime experiences that money can't buy, and I'd be pinching myself like, this is fucking awesome. And then like some months there's just nothing. You're like, you're only as good as your last job on social media. So, there was definitely a risk. But again, with that risk becomes a little bit more proactivity with it as well. So, I mean, I had a manager at the time as well. So every week we'd sit down, brainstorm creative concepts. We'd take the concepts and pretty much white label them, whether it was for a car, or if it was a suit, or it was for an alcohol, or it was for colognes. We'd come up with a sort of a creative concept, and then we would just pitch it and say, all right, who's got more money for the idea? So, rather than waiting for a brand to come to you and say, this is the brief, this is what we want, this is the product, this is the tone of voice, and this is the angle that we're going for, we jumped on the front foot and created that whole essential campaign, and then took it to people and say, this is going to cost you $5,000, this is going to cost you $8,000, or whatever, and then pitch it to other brands to see who would pick up the idea.
I love that you just mentioned about being proactive. That's one thing. Even in the podcast game, until about 16 weeks ago, I was very passive with it. I was like, people were always asking to come on, which was fine.
Yeah.
But I was like, collaborations are a great way to grow, like leverage each other's audiences and doing that. But some people don't have the time to collaborate properly because they might want to write the copy or cut up the reels or whatever it is. Yeah. So I'm like, well, what I do now is a done for you package. We have key points and stuff that we want. I'm giving away all my tips here, but all the stuff that, I have a theme around what I want to learn from someone, right?
Sure.
Because I'm always, follow you for various reasons. And then I'm like, I get to pick your brand. I get to sit down with you. So what do I really want to learn? And then how can that go to market? How can that really add value to our audience? And then how can I give that to you in a way where you don't have to do a single thing except go, if I want to collaborate, click collaborate. And we then reach a bigger audience. And it's a little bit more work, but man, it just pays off because it makes it super easy for the guests to have an awesome experience. And I think no one else is doing that just yet.
And I think the content as well, for somebody who's producing content, whether it be social media or podcast, when you start working with brands and pitching to brands or even people that you want to talk to, that's noticeable in the room and in the content because it aligns with you.
Yes.
And you take far more interest in something that you're interested in rather than someone asking you. Like, it's the same with me. If a brand comes to me and goes, Sean, here's a budget, here's this, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. But you're not pumped about it.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting there going like, man, I've always wanted to work with this watch brand. I've got this idea. We've created it. There's a bit more, emotional investment in the idea.
Yep.
And then the brand picks up and goes, hey, mate, we love that. I'm like, perfect. I feel way more pumped to do that job than someone approaching me to do a job.
Yep.
Because it's my idea, it's my creation, and I want to execute on it better.
Yeah, bring it to life, really get behind it. And it's definitely something that I feel, obviously walking away from the security net of having the franchise and all of those sorts of things, it does light a fire under your ass because you're like, if I fail, I'm the only person to blame.
Yeah.
And a lot of people never get to really experience that. And you can become disgruntled. I know I was when I was just employed. I'd always be like, oh, how come my boss gets to do this and do that? I'm like, well, he's the one who's taking the risk. He's the one who has the fire under his ass to make it work. I'm 100%. Just showing up, getting my $20 an hour and being a lazy bastard, really. Whereas now, every day, I'm like, everything that I do, I'm like, how can I be better?
Yeah. How
can I make it this easier for that person to add more value to then ultimately grow the concept that I have in my head as well?
Yeah, exactly. You feel guilty about the downtime.
Oh, don't you what?
Like, yeah, you're like, I need to be doing something. That's what it's like. I just open up my thing and start, writing ideas down. I'm like, I'm just giving myself work for no reason. But I'm like, maybe just absorb the downtime. But I don't know. There's that fire and there's pressure. And I think as as an individual, when you're the product and you're the brand as well, you start to bring. This is where I also feel pressure now as well. Like when you're the product, brand, and service, like apart from the franchise where you've actually got something, and someone's using that service inside and out, but then this social media side, people are investing into you as a person and as a brand and as a personality. Yep. And I just find that way there's more pressure in that as well. And then I also feel like I've got a full-time manager I was talking to on the phone before, and she's heavily invested into me, and that's really, quite humbling as well. Like someone's putting their time and effort into you as a product. They believe in you and the things that you come up with. So there's also that element, and also got a videographer, a photographer, script writer, and animated guys. So I've got this little team underneath me. So you go far out. I need to keep doing more to keep these people happy, because these people invested into me as a person.
Yep.
Which I think is quite selfless.
Oh, definitely.
It's crazy. I'm like, I'm the product, and someone's working there to help me get more views and more followers and all this kind of stuff to make more money.
Yep.
But it's quite a bizarre concept for me to get my head around at the beginning.
How do you find though, because that can be perceived two ways, right? One way could be like, it's very exciting. You've now got to make sure you perform, which the way that I would view it is like, I want to be as healthy as I can. I want to be as well rested, because every day I'm not performing well, I'm letting this team down.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is the immense pressure that it's like, I got to be better than I was. You're only as good as your last campaign.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? And I'd sort of say that probably comes into like a self-esteem, confidence, maybe mindset sort of field. How do you balance that?
Yeah, and it's also a personality thing. Like, I get for me, I get the reward from me is when I create something creative and someone's like, "That's epic, good job." You know? So, and then also as a creative person, you want to get feedback on creative stuff. So, for me, it's feedback. I can be pretty hard on myself. I create a job. We did a job last week down in Melbourne, and I saw the final product, and I was like, I'm not happy with that. Not at all. My manager's like, I really like it. And I'm thinking, maybe my expectations are here.
Yeah.
But the brand was like, we really loved it. Hit the mark for what we want. And I don't know. At this stage, it's for me. For me, it's getting the feedback off other people. If someone turns around and goes, "Yeah, that's not quite what we wanted. I'm not happy with that," I'm like, far out. It's about finding where that went wrong and trying again and doing it again.
Yep.
But for me, staying, I guess, on top of it is just feedback. I just need as much feedback as I can as a creative person.
I think as well, though, you're a very ambitious person, right? And as a result of that is the destination we never reach, right? What we now have, we once wanted, and it's now not enough to a degree. And it's not coming from a place of scarcity. It's like, I now know that's my bench, like that's my baseline. Sorry, I've done that before. I want to go bigger.
The thing, like, you ask me every year, like I ask myself and my manager every year, like, where are we going next? What's the next plan? And it's hard because with social media and content, it's coming from your scarcity points. This is an industry of abundance. That you can't put enough out. And then once you're starting to do social media posts, then do you move into podcasts? Then do you move into vlogs? Then do you move into travel content? I like, where's the end?
Yeah.
You're getting to a point now where you need like a separate person for a different platform, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Because then the content varies per platform as well. So there's a non-stop amount of things that you can be doing this, and there's not enough time.
Yeah, literally. And it's a whole new skill set. Like, podcasting is so different to, we got a YouTube channel as well, and I've only just started doing the podcast on that about 6 months ago, like properly.
Yeah.
And it's just a whole different ball game. Even for vlogging, it's like, you got to learn cuts, and it's like, I feel like a lot of people really don't understand how much work, and you've shared a fair bit of the stuff that goes into your, designing concepts and stuff like that. For me, I didn't even know that. I was just like, just post a video and smile and here we go. But so much thought goes into it, which is what has made you so successful in that space.
And experimenting as well. Like, there's different forms of content that do well on other platforms, and then other people are like, I don't know. There's always trying to figure out, like, how can I capture somebody's attention in the first 2-3 minutes? 2, 3 seconds, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Like, what's the hook line? Like
Yeah.
TikTok, you're on to the next thing so quickly.
Yep.
Unless you don't catch someone's attention that first 2, 3 seconds being like, this is why you should go to Turkey to get hair transplant. People are like, whoa, okay, I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
You just
I
gotta
want to go to Turkey.
deliver.
Yeah.
Deliver.
But that's before we go into the hair stuff, because I do really want to go there. When you ventured into the social media space, like getting photos done, you mentioned you were started taking your camera to cafes and stuff like that. That scares the shit out of me. Like my wife, you know, and her sister and stuff are awesome at it, and I want to be awesome at it. Like I think it'd add a lot of value to what we do.
Yeah.
But having in my head, I'm like, what is that person thinking about me for taking a photo of me doing that?
Oh, yeah.
Are you comfortable with that?
You're
or-
going to block that out so quickly. You do, because like, and I can tell you there was a turning point for me. I would set up my camera like really slyly in the corner and it would stream to my mobile.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like you can see you can connect them wirelessly, and I could see this. I'd set it up at somewhere obscure and then like see myself in the camera, and then I'd like put a timer on it. 1, 2, 3. And like the look away is like, oh, it's candid. Someone else is taking a photo of me. But then I started working with this photographer, Ali. He's a Brisbane-based guy, and I was doing all my own content, and he was just barraging me in my DMs, being like, bro, let's work. Bro, let's hustle. Come on, man. Let me shoot you. And I was like, man, this guy's relentless. And I just left him in the DMs for like a couple of months. And then one day, my photographer cancelled on me, and I was shooting a job for Uniqlo, and I texted him, and it was like an hour before I needed to shoot this content, and I was like, oh, hey, bro, sorry, I didn't see these. And I was like, yeah, I need to shoot a Uniqlo job in an hour. He's like, done, see you there. I was like, sweet. He rocked up, and I remember being in this like, it was like Queen Street Mall or something like that, and I'm standing there, and he is climbing on top of bins. He's like, look to me, to the right. And there's people walking around everywhere. I'm like, far out. Everyone's fucking looking at me.
Subtle.
But the stuff that he shot was awesome. And then I ended up working with him for like 3 or 4 years, and we used to go to cafes, and the guy did not care who was watching, who was looking, no matter what. Like he's just
In the moment.
He'd be just tunnel vision on getting the right shot. And then I just learned to give it up. And then it was also a conversation starter. People were like, who are you, mate? What are you shooting for? I'm shooting for this watch brand and social media stuff.
That's awesome,
Sorry,
actually. I never thought
sorry
about
if we're disturbing you.
Yeah. Here's my card.
Yeah, exactly. Follow me.
Yeah.
I just learned to block it out. And now you can see people doing it everywhere.
Yep.
You just got to deliver with confidence.
Yeah. Well, there's times where I find myself going, what an idiot. I'm like, I just wish I had the balls to do it. And I do some days, like I'm all over it. I'm like, this is fine.
Yeah.
But majority of the time, it's what I want to be doing, because social media it drives a lot of business to the Man That Can project. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, just own it, dude. And as you just said, I never thought about it. It's a great conversation starter. What are you doing? Oh, man, we run this.
Yeah.
Da-da-da.
Just shooting some content for this.
You're going to see me everywhere in Brisbane now, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Just every coffee shop in active wear.
Yeah, just getting the sweat on. Obviously, into the fashion space, there was a guy I had on the podcast maybe a couple of months ago, Greg Schreiman, where he was talking about, for him as a midlife male, fashion's such an important part, as I mentioned, like self-respect and just helping you build your confidence. And obviously, I'm sitting here in active wear.
Yeah.
Normally, I at least wear slacks. I'm on wear, but like this shirt's a little bit big for me and whatnot. But it was when he sort of said that, that's when it clicked. And I said to Amy, I was like, once I get to America, like I'm going to start giving a shit about my appearance, because I can literally just wear the same stuff for years and I look ragged and haggard. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Which is just a lazy man's approach. But then, as you were saying, it's like when you suit up and stuff, you do feel like your confidence goes through the roof. You just feel like $1 million.
Yeah.
And when you feel good, you generally look out for better things. You behave in a more certain way and you get better outcomes.
Definitely. I think it's also one of the things that is included in that whole first impressions look, right? And
Yes.
I agree with your friend. I think it comes down to an element of self-respect and an element. The Italians say dressing well is a form of good manners. The Italians say that as well. And he's right. When I'm in a 3-piece suit, double-breasted suit tie, pocket square, and I'm going out, man, or going to a meeting, I feel bulletproof. I feel like my level of confidence is way higher.
Yeah.
I hate being that person in a room when like I'm like, should I have worn that? Oh, you know, I was maybe a little bit over the top, maybe too much. And then I get there, then someone's wearing something nicer than me. I'm like, damn it. I should have always be the best dressed person in the room.
Yeah.
Always.
Set the standard.
Because if you're sitting there feeling overdressed, everyone else is going, fuck, I wish I fucking dressed like him, actually.
Oh, mate,
I feel underdressed.
Dude, I'm feeling that right now. Like yesterday I did a podcast with a guy and I knew he'd be wearing, and I didn't have things on before, so I wore a button-up shirt. It's the first time I think I've ever worn one on a podcast, but I walked in going, yeah, I feel nice. Then when I rolled in here after a session, I'm like, fuck, my legs look good though.
yeah, how good are the pins?
But yeah, I'm also like, okay, well, it's another good reminder of the importance of setting the standard and maintaining that standard. Obviously, you have hundreds of thousands of followers. At what point for you, let's dive into the hair stuff, did you start noticing, were you ever self-conscious about the hair, and what was it for you? Was it balding, receding hairline? How did it all come about, and what made you sort of go down this path?
It was I had always had a high widow's peak. That was evident through school.
What's that for the added?
Okay,
average
for the
punter?
a widow's peak is just a high hairline.
Yeah, okay.
So it might not actually be a genetic balding.
Yep.
You know, you might not be balding. It's just this is where your hairline just naturally sits.
Okay.
So it's kind of you have that peak up here towards like I guess just above your temples.
Yes.
So even during school, when I was younger, it was just my natural hairline. And then I guess when I was like getting into the social media side of it, and it started happening more about 3 years ago.
Yep.
And let's be honest, the social media world, especially in the industry that I'm, which was obviously like the fashion side of things, it was being talked about, and people were bringing it up in photo shoots and like being like, "Hey mate,
about with you."
Yeah. And what happened, I think maybe when I was in my 30s, 35 now, so around 32, people started bringing it. I think it just started going back from the high widow's peak a little bit more, going back and back a little bit more. And it actually did kind of come back about 3 inches from where it is right now.
Yeah.
And I'll give you some photos. I don't know if you can overload those, but I'll show you before and after photo. And it started going back. And then when I was getting like makeup done for ads, or I was doing a speaking gig or whatever, and people were putting like makeup, people would be like, "Oh, don't get his receding hairline." They're like, make
Ruthless.
sure that, bro, I tell you what, makeup artists and producers or whatever, or people that you're on the set with,
savage.
I just like, they don't notice they're being mean, right? Because they're just making sure that everything looks good, right, for TV or for a photo shoot or whatever. Yeah, they're like, make sure you get the makeup up in here, or like, can you please get his hair to sweep over his receding hairline? I was sitting there going, oh fuck. It happened once, right?
Yep.
And then it's just one of those things when it didn't bother me at all. Like it wasn't even on the radar for me at like 31, 32. Yep. Then it happened at an ad, and I was like, okay, that's the first time that's kind of been talked about. And then it happened once or twice or 3 times, and then I was like, now I'm getting self-conscious about it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, once it's brought up, it's kind of like the theory of, you know, the red. Have you ever like the red Mazda theory? Like you're thinking about buying a red Mazda, and you're like, oh, cool. Well, yeah, that's like a great car. Then you see the red. Then when you go and have a look at the car, then suddenly you start seeing the car everywhere.
Everyone has a Mazda.
Everyone's a red Mazda, and it was that thing. It's like someone pointed it out, and then it was just kept seeing it.
Yep.
I was like walking into an elevator with downlight, and I'm like, fucking hell, that actually looks a little bit bad. And then the days that rather than me walking into an elevator or seeing my reflection, I'll be looking at the clothes and stuff I'm wearing to see if I'm dressed well. I was looking at my receding hairline. I was like, fuck, it is getting worse. Is it getting worse? Am I making it worse for myself? I don't know. So then, so it's part and parcel of the industry that I'm in. I mean, they're buying into a person, into a look.
Yep.
And then, it started coming up more and more often. And then I started getting reviews of photos. And then after a couple of photo shoots, I noticed that, you know, they were picking photos where like my hair would be turned to the side and this hair would be covering over top of the receding hairline or whatever. And then I started picking photos for my social media based on that as well, being like, oh, you know, I don't really like that angle because I can see heaps of my receding hairline there, and then I started becoming self-conscious about it. So I don't know if it was. I think it was driven mainly by the industry that I'm working in, and I started noticing more and more, and then I started getting more self-conscious about it. Then before going out on Saturday nights, I was just changing my hair a little bit, and then I noticed like when I was taking group photos and stuff, I'd favor one side more than the other because the hair would go over it. And then that's when I decided to go down the process of like inquiring about it.
Why do you feel there's such a stigma around balding and or receding hairlines, especially in your industry, but just in general?
I think it's the one thing that men are scared of. I think it's one thing that, you sit down at the pub and have a few beers. I think it becomes a topic of conversation in your 30s a little bit more openly, but amongst mates. And, like a couple of my mates have just owned it, gone, screw it, let's just going to go down the Chrome Dome route and take it straight off and own it. But I think it's the one thing that genuinely make men. I think it's just associated with youth.
Yep.
Nice head of hair. You look younger. I think it's just one thing that men are scared to lose. I think I feel like for me personally, I'm in control of most of my stuff, most things.
Yep.
Health, my fitness, mental health as well.
Yep.
All those elements of your life you can have control of. Your hair feels is one thing. You're like, am I losing it because of the stress? Am I losing it because of genetics?
Yep.
I don't know, but it's like far out. I'm trying to keep a hold of it, and you can see brands like, I don't know if you get the ads on social media from like...
I get it every
I don't want to mention the name, plug a brand, but you get those like, it's monthly subscription, we're going to send you hair pills.
Yep.
Use this roller for your hair. And like, use this cream, use this special shampoo. There is a bunch of things out there right now that are getting targeted to men, and I just think that it's a underspoken, under-talked about thing.
Yep.
But it's also... an avenue that's also not got much content on.
Yeah.
As well. I think that's why the content's doing so well on my other pages is because I'm an open book on it, really. I really don't care. So I'm happy to share it. But it's just the one thing that guys are scared of.
Mate, I think it's awesome that you are speaking about it, because even prior to it, it's like, there's always people going, oh, this person had a hair print, and then you go, oh, what a loser, blah, blah, blah. But then when you actually meet and understand why people are doing it, because everyone's thinking it, right? Like, there's a few things you were saying, like around once some person points it out, because I have my buddies point it out all the time, like, oh, you got a thin, crowning or whatever the fuck it's called, chrome doming.
Yeah.
And I've always just like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like, stop bringing it up. But then when you jump in the elevator or you notice on a photo that it's thin, and I'm like, yeah, I probably won't use that one. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
And so then, as you were saying that, I'm like, actually, I think I do care. I just try to not care as almost like, let's just bury that. We'll not deal with it. But then, Amy's like, get a hair transplant if you want. Yeah. Like, who cares? And I've been like, well, is there a stigma around it? Like, do you feel there's a stigma around hair transplants?
Far out. It's. I think, I don't know. It's a good question. Because there was a short lead time between me being like, should I do this to let's do it, right?
Yeah.
And I did my research. I had a couple of friends who did it, right, prior to me doing it. And they're the opposite to me. They disappeared from social media for like 6-7 months, right? They just suddenly just reappeared into society with like thick, luscious locks. And they're like, what happened to your hair? You're like, bro, what are you talking about? I don't know. Mate, own it. Like, where did that come from? You have the most ridiculous hairline. And one of my mates has gone, he's got like Fijian style hair, right? And he's gone literally from like balding to full blown like NBA style. I'm like, don't tell me that just came out of nowhere, man.
Woke up one day.
Exactly. So I think the people that have them, there's a stigma. They're like, I just don't want people to know they got a hair transplant because then I have to talk about the balding process, and that was an embarrassing process. So I mean, I think there is, but yeah, I don't know. There's people want to talk about it. For me, having it done, I'm getting. The conversations online are endless.
Yep.
I can't keep up with the questions and the DMs and the comments on TikTok videos and Instagram videos. So I just think it's it's a topic that needs to be spoken about. The stigma around getting the hair transplant, I don't know, because I'm living in a world right now where I'm fully open about it, and I don't feel like there is. I've got pretty thick skin, and I'm an open book when it comes to most things. So, yeah, I feel like for me, it isn't.
And that's because you've owned it, right? Like if you hadn't owned it, maybe and you were trying to hide it, that's when you keep getting these questions and like, oh, people know. It's like, of course people fucking know.
Self-conscious about it. Yeah, far out.
But you've owned it, so now you can just be like, yep, this is what I'm doing, answer all their questions. Yeah. And yeah, that's awesome. How has it impacted your confidence and mental health since having it done?
Yeah, that's a good one. I tell you, the whole procedure is a freaking roller coaster, right? Because you get there, you shave your hair, they take the hair, and they also they talk about like where this is going to go and how many hairs you can
Where do they take the hairs from? Let's talk about the process.
So you've got a donor area that goes from the back to ear to ear, right, around this back here. And you've seen guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s, right? And all they've got is that like strand at the back. Yeah. They've got nothing on the top, and they've just got that.
That's going to be me, bro.
Yeah, well, so that hair in that back section right there is genetically 3 times stronger and 3 times more dense than the rest of your hair in your body. So the rest of the hair on your head. So what they do is they take the hair from there and put it in your transplant area in your front or your crown there. But because that hair is so strong, it's always going to grow. The only problem with a hair transplant is you're going to lose the hair that isn't the hair transplanted area. Yeah, right. Further back, right? So the hair that goes in there is always going to stay there because it's just the way that's the hair in that area was built. It's strong, it's tough, and it's 3 times denser. So you can lose up to 2/3 of your hair in that area. It's like the best way to describe it is like you're just essentially repotting a plant, pulling it out from its roots and just putting it somewhere else. Exactly right. So so they take that there, and obviously it's a 6-hour process of extraction. Then it's a 3-hour process of implantation. Yep. Right, and what they do is they put anesthetic in your head, and then what they do is they swell up your area, right? So they put these injections that increases, they increase the surface area of the front part of your head. Yeah.
So you look like a Martian or something.
You look like your whole face has just been pumped full of Botox, right? It's really fun. Honestly, I look at those photos like right mid-thing. I'm like, fuck, I look 25 here. I look, there's not a single wrinkle in my face. Anyway, so what happens is then they take this little knife and they make individual holes in the.
So a person's just doing that
one by one. Yeah, there's a little like needle hole, and they've got 2 people on both sides here, and they're just sitting there with like a microscope on things over their heads, and they're just going pop, 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 and just making them these tiny little incisions, right? And then they take the hair and they drop them in one by one with tweezers. Yeah, so like it's super. And then what happens is, over 3 or 4 days, the swelling goes down, the skin goes back, but it tightens it up and groups them closer together.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the hairs grow. Then you go through this thing called the shedding phase, which is just a fucking kick in the nuts because you're pumped, right? Your hair's growing, and the area that's been transplanted is growing at the same time, so it all looks even, right? And about a month and a half in, this thing goes through a shedding phase, which the part that generates the hair drops the hair. So the rest of your hair keeps growing, and all the hair in your front section drops out. So now you look like you've just got your natural receding hairline. You can see it. And then it starts regrowing. But, of course, in that process, you get a couple of, like, ingrown hairs and, you get a couple of, like, little pimples and stuff here. And it's red as well. And you're using this, like, special spray they give you to calm everything down. And then about 3 to 4 months in, all those hairs will start growing out, right? So from 3 months, they say 50% of the hairs will grow. 6 months, 60 come out. 8 months, 80% come out. 9 months in, 90% of the hair grows to about, they reckon that there's about a 5% loss of hair. So you get 95% of the hair they transplant, which is a pretty good success rate.
Really good.
Really good. And then about 6 months in, you can get, 6 months in, you can get your first haircut, which evens out all the hair that's grown.
Oh, so you're not running an even haircut for that?
No, you've got like these ones at the front here are all really fucking short and stubby, and the rest back are all like long, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? Looks like someone's absolutely just butchered your head. So you're walking around with a hat for a little bit as well. And you're just like, man, I do not feel sexy at all right now. I've got like ingrown hairs. It's gross. Yeah. And then you get your first haircut at 6 months, and I remember looking in the mirror being like, fuck, this looks sick. I was like, it all looks even. You can see it on my TikTok as well. I put my first video up. I was like, oh,
I'm loving
it's
this.
like it's like full sharp across the front. You know, the receding hairline's gone. I was just like, fuck. And then I just remember that day just walking out of the barber, just Conor McGregor, just fucking, I'm on.
Throwing all your hats in the bin.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that first 6 months, it's tough. You got to trust the process. And you know, people were messaging me on TikTok when I was posting my journey, being like, this is where it's at. This is the supplements I'm taking. This is what I'm getting done, blah, blah, blah. You know, social media can be a pretty cruel place.
Oh, yeah.
And I just had nothing but like people that had hair transplants prior to me. And they're just like, mate, stay in it. This is a tough part. Trust the process. It'll be good. This is the time that you're going far out. You know, you're sitting there month 3 going, fuck about it. This is the worst decision I've ever made. What am I doing? Like this.
Yeah, does your confidence take a dip there?
Yeah, and everyone says, you know, everyone that goes through this hair transplant goes, you go in month 3, you question everything, being like, this was just a waste of time and a waste of money. Look at my fucking head now.
Yeah.
And then, 6 months later, you get your first haircut and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm stoked.
Ballin'.
This is awesome. So, yeah, so confidence now through the roof, man. It's been a year. So, yeah, I love waking up in the morning and just going in and having a look at my hair. It's different. The feedback that you get as well from other people being like, yeah, man, you didn't need one, but now that you've got one, yeah, you needed one. I was like, what? Bro, I didn't really think you needed one. Then you look at the before and after photos and you're like, yeah, I styled my hair in a certain way that made me look like I didn't need one. But now I've just got my hair like pushed back.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got this like sharp line here now. I'm like, yeah, man, I'm absolutely wrapped. It was probably one of the best decisions I've made. And it was a fun journey. You're super nervous before you do it, but I did it with my mate Wells, and I got 3,500 grafts. He got 4,500 grafts, and it was fun. Well, we did it. I mean, we did it together. So I think if I did it by myself, it would have been a little bit more daunting, being in Turkey by myself.
Yeah, because you went to Turkey for it. Why? Yeah. What was the decision behind going to Turkey as opposed to getting it done in Brisbane, for example?
Yeah, so I went and actually got it done here in Brisbane.
Awesome.
My initial quotation and my initial consultation was done here in Brisbane. And I was a little underwhelmed by the experience. I'm a guy who feeds off the energy. Mm-hmm. So had I been in a room with a guy that was, mate, you're gonna look schmick after this, I would have been like, all right, sick, sign me up, right? But the guy was like, yeah, we'll do this and we'll get you in surgery. And I think we'll give you about 3,500 grafts or 3,000 grafts. And this is where we'll put it, and then we'll get you in for a 6-hour surgery, and we'll discharge you, and then, man, away you go. I was like, okay, sweet, cool. And then they had sent me a quote for $22,000, and I was like, that's a fair chunk of money.
Yeah, there's no energy behind that.
That's a lot, yeah. And then he said, if we think we need more on the day, there's an extra there's an extra 1.5 to 2.5 grand per 250 grafts. So I was like, oh man, so it could be more. And I end up getting 500 grafts more, right? So the quote would probably have gone from 22 grand to maybe 25 grand, right? Mm-hmm. And then one of the guys I spoke to, he had went and got a quote from the same guys.
Yep.
He walked out on the day of surgery because they asked him, we need to give you another 500 grafts. And he was like, man, I'm already paying 18 grand for this. And he was in surgery studio, ready to rock and roll. And they'd re-quoted him. And he got out of there. He was like, nah, I'm leaving. So he left. And then... So that, I guess that wasn't a really great start for the guys that I was going to go do it with. So I was like, look, I'm just going to have a look elsewhere and just see what's going on, right? And then I started doing my research in Turkey, and I came up with 2 people. One of them was an individual doctor. He'd done some amazing work, and you can see all their before and afters on Instagram.
Yeah.
One of them had 4.5 million followers.
So
they had
legit.
Yeah, they had just finished. They'd just done the UFC heavyweight champion. I can't remember his name. They've been doing they had done a Manchester City player. They had done all these football guys.
Yep.
And their content as well was just phenomenal. Yeah, the clinics. They had a smoothie bar in there. The whole operation that they portrayed online just looked so incredibly professional, right? So I reached out to them and said, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about getting a hair transplant with you guys. Just want to know what the cost would be." So they sent me back going, "Yep, it's $4,250 US, right?" And I was like, "Fuck, that's good. That's really decent."
It's really decent.
Yeah, I was like, let me just quote up the rest of what the rest of my trip would be, right? So $4,500 USD. I jumped on the line, had a look at flights. I just flew Emirates over there. It was 2,400 return. Landing in Istanbul, I wanted to do 5-6 nights accommodation first to check out Istanbul because I've heard it was unreal.
Yep.
I think we paid you could get a decent hotel for about 180 Aussie dollars a night,
right.
5-star. If you really wanted to, you could probably go 3-4 star mid range for about 90 Aussie dollars a night. It was cheap as chips, man.
Yep.
And then so I was like, okay, so 3 or 4 nights there. Then I asked them what did it included. The girl was like, it includes transfers. We'll pick you up from the airport and take you to your hotel. It includes 3 nights accommodation at a 5-star hotel. Transfers to and from the clinic, the procedure itself, and then we'll do 2 days of recovery at the hotel, and we've got a nurse, a translator, and 6 months of supplements and shampoos for you as well, included in that 3 days. Now, I don't know whether the Australian one did that, or I don't know what the follow-up stuff in Australia looked like. I knew that they sold their products afterwards as well, which were quite expensive. The impression that I got from this other company here in Australia was that I was discharged and had maybe a follow-up meeting. That was it.
Yep.
I had to buy all of my products moving forward. When we landed in Turkey and got there and was picked up by the guys, this limo picks us up in these plush lazy boys. We got drove into the hotel. The hotel was awesome. We checked in. The van waited for us outside. We went to the clinic. We walked in, and there's as we walked in, they had 3 or 4 videographers, boom mic guy. We were like, man, this feels like a proper TV set.
Yeah.
They're like, introduce yourself. I was like, yeah, hi, I'm Sean. I'm here from Australia getting a hair transplant. And man, we just fucking jumped straight into it. And the guy's like, all right, sit down. We're going to draw the line. Okay, we need to get 3,500 grafts. This is what we're going to do. Then they sent us across into the another barber studio where me and my buddy got to shave each other's heads.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah. And then we went into the procedure. 3 hours of extraction, had a lunch break, 3 hours of implanting, and then they took care of us for the next 2.5 days. I didn't want to leave. It was awesome. We had someone looking after us every minute, every hour. Every time if something was to go wrong, there was a doctor at the hotel in a second being like, all right, let me rebandage that up for you. Let me give you some antibiotics. Let's get you back to the clinic. We're going to wash your hair, clean you up, and rebandage you up as well. And then, of course, when we left, they gave us all the supplements and everything we needed for 6 months. And I think, it would have been half the price than what it was in Australia,
including a holiday.
Including the holiday.
Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
And with the supplements and stuff now, do you still need to take them, or what's the go with that? And even care now, can you not brush it as hard as maybe you would, or how does that all work?
Yeah. So there's 6 months of I've taken all the natural supplements and the shampoo already. So I'm actually not doing anything. There's one treatment I'm doing which we can walk through. It's called PRP. It's a plasma treatment where they take your blood, they spin it, they take the plasma, and then they inject it in.
What do they just inject it in your head?
Yeah. So take your blood and spin it. But at the moment, there's 2 options that you can be taking. You can take in minoxidil or finasteride, and people take that pre-hair transplant. And the feedback that I get from there is mixed. I mean, across the board, the supplements work.
Yep.
People are seeing that there's stronger hair, less like it's maintaining the hair that they've got. Some are finding increased thickness as well. There are some side effects. Again, this is not medical advice, by the way. But I understand some of the side effects are a drop in libido, sexual performance, drive, which is something that I don't really want to play around with as a single dude. So
you need to be thriving.
Yeah, exactly, right. So I haven't taken any supplements like that. I think if I start to see, my hair drop back or thin, I might jump on it. Yeah. But right now, I'm just doing this PRP treatment. Yeah. So what they do is they take your blood, they spin it, and they take the plasma, and it separates. You get the white stuff at the top, and then your blood sits at the bottom of a test tube, and they take that and they just inject that into your transplant area and your existing hair area. And what happens is that just increases the flow of blood to that area as well. So any of the hair that's probably your hair goes through cycles of dropping out and regrowing and dropping out and regrowing. Yep. So that just keeps it in that growth phase. So it just thickens all the hair in that area. So none of your hair is dropping out and regrowing, dropping out and regrowing.
And how frequently do you do that?
Once a month.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you just do that somewhere local?
Yeah, I actually go to the place that gave me the initial $20,000
quote. Yeah, they're charging like $5,000 for a PRP or something to get their money back.
Mate, it's about $5,000, yeah.
Every month?
Not every month. Oh. So no, for a package of 6.
Oh, right. So
a package of 6, 7. I think I paid about $2,500 for about a package of 6.
Yep. So $5,000 a year or something.
Yeah, about $5,000 a year. You'll be about 12 sessions, so one a month. Yeah.
Yep. Maintenance phase.
Yeah. So that's. I mean, that's the. Again, like the PRP thing is pretty much the only thing I'm doing at this stage. If anything, you can also go through there's another hair transplant procedure that they can do, which is only 500 hairs. Less invasive in terms of like shaving your hair and going through that whole process of extracting 3,500 hairs. Yep. But they can thicken up your hair where they just take another 500 hair follicles out. It's a shorter procedure, and what they do is they keep your hair here, and they just find gaps, and they can
just plug and play.
Plug and play. So it will just grow through. But you can. One of my mates down in Melbourne, he just gets that 500 top up every year.
Oh, right.
And just slowly, essentially just
does it.
Slowly removing more hair from the back area just to put it in the front. Because he's got a high fade anyway. Yep. So he keeps his hair super short.
Yep.
So essentially he's just moving hair from one place to another and he's keeping the same haircut. So he doesn't really have hair around the back here anyway, because he's either got a one or no hair there anyway.
Just straight there.
And he just keeps it at the front.
Far out.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating. Like,
it is.
What do you wish, like, for you, maybe, 2.5 years ago when people started commenting on it, what do you wish you had information you had access to, or conversations that were being had that would have made it easier for you to sort of get on top of it earlier?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, because, I don't know, I didn't know the hair transplant was a thing. I just dealt with it for a year and a half. And for me, I thought that I was reaching a stage on social media that my age and where I was at, I was going to slowly become irrelevant, you know, as well. And especially with the super vain industry. You're like,
how does that?
Am I good looking enough for social media?
No, you're Ryan Reynolds. Come on.
But these are the questions you ask yourself, right? And and they're natural. I just think these are the things that just your brain just creates this, and then you start thinking about it and questioning it. And I was looking at the procedure, and I am not a man of patience at all whatsoever. Yep. Like, if I want to do something, I want to go do it. I want to get it over and done with. And if it's a new sport, it's like, I'm not something to just dabble. It's just like my ADHD means like I need full commitment, and there's like tunnel vision on that thing. And I want to become good at that. And if I want something to be done like my hair, I'm not the guy who's going to sit there and wait 9 months for a shampoo to work or whatever, right? I'm like, this is the fastest option for me because of the industry that I'm in. And maybe I create some content around it. So there wasn't, and you know what? To the point, there wasn't much information, or I didn't really know anybody that had a hair transplant at the time as well. So I had one or two mates. They were pretty cagey about it as well, and they're already cagey about the whole process.
Yep.
And so I didn't feel like there were people that were worth talking to as well. Like I feel like, I don't know, am I probing them too much about this sort of stuff? Do they want to be exposed? It's like, fuck, don't talk to me about my hair transplant. I don't want to talk about it, man. I was balding. So yeah, I just kind of just went out there and did all my own research, and then started following a couple of the profiles, hair transplant clinics, and then reaching out directly to the guys that they had tagged and said, hey, like, how are you finding this? What's going on? YouTube as well. There's a couple of YouTubers that have also like documented vlogged their journeys as well. So all that information was kind of stuff that was all new.
Yep.
Yeah. And the procedure that I went through called this Sapphire DHI. Yeah. DHI procedure was also a fairly new procedure as well. So like guess there was an element of risk involved now. I think.
Yeah. I was like, so you're an early adopter, man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and you know, it's, it was all the research was done online. Yeah. There wasn't a crazy amount that was just out here. I think there's only one or two clinics in Brisbane that did it as well.
Yep.
So again, going through that consultation as well, that's where I got my information from. That's kind of where I also knew from that initial consultation in Australia where that new hairline was going to be, how it works. Because
do you do that virtually with them, or how?
No,
does that
I went in. I went in.
Oh, sorry, but for the guys in Turkey.
Yeah. So the one in Turkey was on WhatsApp.
What, a FaceTime or something?
Yeah. Actually, no, you just take photos. Actually, at one point, I was like, am I being scammed here? Like, I don't actually know. This is all WhatsApp. The guy was like, yeah, it looks good. We can give you 3,500 hairs. When do you want to come? And I was like, when's your next availability? The guy was like, early June. I was like, okay. And he was like, okay. He goes like, okay, what date? And then he gave me my date. And then he's like, okay, see you then. And then
that's it.
We didn't speak for like 3 months. I was like, and I bought my flights. I'm like, hey, like, we're still good for June, right? And the guy's like, yeah, see you then. I was like,
like an email follow-up.
Yeah, exactly. So then, like, I landed in Turkey, and then once I messaged them, like 6 or 7 days before, I was like, yeah, I'm here in Turkey now. The guy's like, okay, yeah, we'll see you on the date that you booked in. I was like, far out, man. This is like,
give me something.
But then the day before, man, the communication came in thick and fast. They were like, Sean, how's your trip to Turkey? And suddenly it just all picked up.
They want to be your best mate.
They were all over it. Where are you staying? Where are you picking you up? This is what's happening. And then like the conversation from pickup to drop off at the airport, they were just like everything. I just felt like I was taken such great care of. Yeah.
I think another thing to highlight as well, like you put yourself in a position to be able to afford that and do that. A lot of, there might be financial limitations for a lot of people. And one of the things we're always talking about is like taking responsibility for how you want your life to be. And finances is, makes the world go round, whether you want to believe it or not. And if you feel that like balding, or there's so many other things in your life that can impact your confidence, your quality of your life, your relationships with people. For me, it's like, okay, well, that shit could happen to me. Balding could happen. Financial stress, I need to make sure that I put myself in a position that if there is a solution that costs money, I can do that without having to stress too much about it. And obviously with what you've done in the lead up to 2.5 years ago, or even a year ago since the transplant, put you in the position to do that. I think that also needs to be recognised, because people can say, oh, it's easy for Sean. It's like, well, it wasn't easy for you. You took the risk all those years ago and put yourself in the position to be able to do that.
Yeah, and on that point as well, like I think the financial element is probably one of the reasons why people choose Turkey over Australia, right? It is a more affordable option for Australia, for
people in general.
People in general, yeah. 22 grand in Australia is expensive, and I get the reasons why, right? Wages. Doctor, wages, a hotel room. I think paying for
cost of food over here too.
It's nuts, right? It's getting crazy now. And you get to Turkey, and it is cheaper. But like again, that bracket for Turkey can still be unaffordable for some people, right?
Yes.
So paying for flights, 2.5 grand. I think that, your trip to Turkey is going to cost you about 10 grand out of the pocket. I know, without sounding like a plug for the hair transplant company in Turkey, but they also are able to put that. do payment plans as well.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure they do interest-free payment plans as well. So, but again, yeah, if it's something that you want to do, it's a big step.
Yeah.
You know? So I think just putting the funds away to do it, and weighing up whether you really genuinely care about your hair and what it looks like. So I I take my hat off to some of my mates who are like, I don't give a fuck, whatever. This is part of growing up, and I'm not in an industry that I really care about. So one of my buddies over the weekend, we were talking to him, a military boy, shaved his head off and shaved all his hair off, and he's now gone in and get that tattooing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the dots?
Yeah, I have
so
seen
it makes it look like he's just got a shaved head, but a real super sharp hairline. Looks awesome.
Yep.
I mean, that's another thing. And the truth is, when we were in Turkey and I shaved my head completely bald, part of me was like, fuck, I look pretty good. I was like, this looks like Prison Break style. I'm like, actually, I can do this. Actually, I was like, yeah. Before you go down the hair transplant route, before you go down any sort of like thing that's going to cost you money on looking after your hair, have a crack at shaving it off, because you might turn around and go, hey, this looks pretty good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Fucking hell. And so what's coming up for you? Like, what's the direction you're going in over the next 12 months, and where can people follow you?
Direction. Okay, so, well, I still want to cover as much stuff on this hair transplant stuff as much as possible. I want to be an open book about it. I actually want people to reach out. So I'm pretty active both on TikTok and social media. Most of the hair transplant stuff is going to be on TikTok.
Yep.
It's kind of where that's blowing up at the moment. Like, some of the views are hitting like 9 million views.
That's insane.
It's
crazy.
crazy.
It just shows though that there's people out there
just interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally interested.
So the avenue for me is just going to keep talking about maybe more of the hair transplant stuff and trying to get back to as many questions as possible as videos.
Yep.
So if you want to get some more information on that, I'm going to try maybe do a bit of more of a deep dive into hair transplant stuff, and maybe have more industry professionals. Right now, the only thing I'm doing is recounting my personal experience.
Yes.
So getting people on board that can actually talk, doctors, people that can actually talk about the medication, aftercare stuff from a professional aspect is something that I want to sort of focus on as well. And then, of course, mate, my real passion is the travel and fashion side of things. So Instagram, and that's my creative outlet. I want to stick to creating fun, fashionable content for people on social media. Yeah.
Yep. Is there anything you feel we've left out that would be a burning question for someone listening that we haven't covered yet off the top of your head?
Let me have a think about that. No, I don't think so. I think we've covered most things.
Yeah.
I think the key is, if you're thinking about a hair transplant, shave your head, see how you look first, right? You're going to shave it off anyway at some stage. Yeah, see whether or not it's also like, one advice, if you're going to get it done in Australian, get it done at the very beginning of winter, because you can't get your hair in water, you can't get it sunburnt, you got to keep it out of the sun. So I got mine done in June, and I spent over the 3 months of the majority of my recovery in winter, in rugged up, hats on, hoodies, beanies.
So it was perfect.
Yeah, so I was ready for summertime. Ready just for fresh locks in my budgies. It was perfect. I think people are going to watch this and come up with more questions and stuff. So I just didn't encourage them to reach out.
And what are your links and all? You got the website. I'll plug all of these links that Sean's about to share.
Oh, it's just my name, Sean Burley.
Simple.
Just put it in there, self-branded. Yeah, you'll be able to find it in there.
Yeah, it's in the show notes for everyone listening along. Sean Burley, everyone, thank you so much for coming on.
No, man, it's been awesome. It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lucky.